Hi, I'm Ivory, and this is Roz. And today's topic is doppelgangers. This is a show by request, and I don't think we've ever talked about this, have we, Roz?
I don't think so.
Well, we both had personal experience, which we're going to share with you at the end of today's episode. But for those of you who don't know, you might have heard about it. It's very interesting because a true doppelganger is actually a paranormal experience. It's not a person. It's something that looks like you. It's a ghostly double of a living person. And basically, it's a word for someone looking exactly like someone else, but it doesn't mean a human looking like you or another person. And doppelganger in German means double walker. And it was said in legend, the lore was, if you see your own doppelganger, you will die soon. Go ahead. You don't know about that?
I don't know that I fully believe it is only a paranormal event, because they have actually tracked down some doppelgangers, situations that were pretty weird, like twins that were separated at birth, or relatives who...
That's not a true doppelganger. That's something else that's like in the same genre.
When they tested, they had... So I think, we have to expand to, because we get a lot, I just get a lot of communication now from people about our twin flame and our twin, spirits and our twin presences that are existing on the planet. So I think there is some of that, but overall, this is you seeing someone in a kind of a different frame of time, different situation. That is your presence.
Well, in the fiction, it was the reason they thought you would die soon is because they thought if you saw your doppelganger, it's the doppelganger will kill you and take your place. Nobody believes that anymore. I mean, honestly, it's like a mirror universe or cloning or alien intervention. Magic are all possible sources that they originally thought of a doppelganger, but it also includes both mundane and supernatural impersonators of a character. So there's also like twin tropes, which is people who didn't even know they existed and they have a twin out there, and disguise tropes. And there's the evil doppelganger, which I'll tell you about at the end of the show. Apparently I have one.
Whoa.
I know. And it isn't just someone who resembles you, but an exact double, down to the way you talk, walk, look, sometimes even the clothing you're wearing, but not always, because I know they didn't when I saw them. But even a close relative like your boyfriend, your husband, your wife, if they saw this, would think it was you. They would have no question about that being you until they realize it can't be you.
It's like you're looking in a mirror, but in a different frequency almost.
Yeah. You know what I wonder, if it's like a dimension, an overlap of dimensions, because of how I experienced it was really mundane circumstances and weird and impossible to explain. Nothing scary. We'll talk about that. They were viewed as being sinister, but seeing a doppelganger, was used to be like an omen of misfortune. But most often today, they're not that. They don't herald bad luck. They just happen to seem like they're going about their business as usual. And maybe they are, like we said, like an overlap of dimensions. It's you in another dimension or another person in another dimension.
Well, there's also a lot of discussion about parallel universe. I hear this time, people discussing parallel periods of time running concurrently. So it would make perfect sense that if you're existing in this dimension, in this period of time, you could be in a whole other parallel universe, and you could maybe encounter yourself there. So, or see yourself.
You could. It's just, we don't really know what this is about, but
pretty wild.
It's real. There's many reports of doppelgangers. Some could be mistaken identity. And I had one of those too that was really weird in Ireland. But it seems hard to believe that a person who knows someone well would be fooled by that much. Like you'd think they'd look at them again and go, oh no, there's something a little different about them, but they're not. So Roz, I know you said you had experience with doppelgangers as a child. What was your experience?
It was almost the number of times it happened, it was very much like I was seeing myself in a mirror in a different place. And sometimes this was actually when I encountered someone, and I used to always run into people who were going, oh my gosh, you are exactly like whoever, you know? So,
Oh yeah.
very, very interesting stuff. And the other thing that used to happen to me as a child is I used to see other people that I knew in different places. And then I would say, oh, I saw you at so and so. And they go, I've never been there.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
I wasn't aware of doppelganger activity at that time. And I would think, how did that happen?
Sometimes I think it's having this paranormal experience or bizarre experience that makes you look into it and figure out what that is.
Yeah, it was a pretty amazing circumstance, but I distinctly remember up until maybe I was about 8 or 9, a lot of times I would turn around and it was like I was seeing myself in a mirror behind myself, maybe a few feet.
There's reports of that, Roz.
I would think, what's up with that?
Yeah, like you're following yourself.
Yeah, it was just this very strange.
I bet, people are going to be listening to this episode. They're listening to it now, and it might jog some memories where you're like, oh my gosh, that happened to me. And I put that away. Maybe it freaked you out so much you stopped thinking about it. For me, it was like I never saw it until I was an adult. And I was living in Cave Creek, Arizona. And I lived in a 2-story townhouse. And I pulled up next to my garage and I saw my boyfriend poke his head like this. If you're looking, he like turned his head horizontal and looked like around the garage and saw me, and I waved, and he turned around and walked to the front of the house, which is weird because that's like cactus and nobody goes in that way. It's actually the back of the house, even though it's the front of the house. And so I thought that is weird, and I went inside, and when I got inside, he's sitting at his desk in his office, engrossed in writing, wearing totally different clothes. And I said, were you just outside? No. And he couldn't, even if he had gone in and wanted to play a joke on me, there's no way he could have changed his shirt and his pants that fast and not been out of breath. He would have had to run to be in there, change clothes, sit in the chair. No, he was just sitting there writing calmly. And then the other time in that same house, there's something about that house, I walked out of the master bedroom, and right ahead, the stairs to the second floor was directly ahead of me. I saw him turn the corner from his office and start to go up the stairs. And I said, where are you going? And I turned around a minute. When I turned back, he was gone. He couldn't have gone all the way up the stairs. And this time he was wearing the same clothes, but he was outside. He wasn't even in the house. So, both of these things, it's the only time I've ever seen that, but I really sticks in my head because it was him. I was 5 feet away tops that second time, maybe less. It was him. Looked right at me in the eye, went up the stairs without a word, and disappeared.
Wow. That must have been really mind-blowing.
It was. And you know the story of what was happening in that situation. So that was just like a little tidbit of the weirdness happening in that particular house. But some other things that happened were about that, like the finding somebody who looks just like you. Now, I never met them, but I was in Ireland years ago. It was an unplanned stopover of a plane on a trip. And I'm standing in the airport with some family, and these strangers saw me and cried out and came running over and wrapped themselves around me and started crying. Oh my God. I don't even remember the name they called me, but it wasn't my name. And they're crying like, oh, we thought we'd never see you again. It's been so long. We missed you so much. And then they realized I wasn't hugging them back. And they looked at my face and they realized that I wasn't this person, their relative. But they said I looked so much like them. They had no doubt that it was their relative. It was weird because I don't know anybody in Ireland.
Sounds like, yeah, that's one of those experiences that you just feel like you're in a time warp somehow.
I
And come to
did.
find out, you're just experiencing someone else's doppelganger.
Yeah, and then there was another time that, that camping trip I used to go to Pennsylvania every year for 10 days in August. One year I didn't go. And that year, my several friends who don't know each other there said, your evil doppelganger was here, your evil twin. I mean, what do you mean? They're like, they look like you, they dress like you, but they were horrible. They were foul-mouthed and evil, just saying the most conniving things about people and to people. And that's how we knew for sure it wasn't you, but otherwise looked just like you. Freaked them out. It was like I was going around with a flip personality.
It probably just that I must have just stuck in those people's minds.
Yes. Yes. They were like, it was traumatic. But, I've had other people tell me that many times, I don't know if I just look that generic, like I look like a ton of people, but there's so many people who are like, you look exactly like my cousin, or your voice, everything is just like this friend of mine. It's so weird. They say there's only 1 in a trillion people that looks just like you, but apparently I have clones.
I think we all do, personally. I mean, I just think it's, look how many people there are on the planet.
Yeah, there's only so many
And there's only so much difference in DNA.
And that sometimes it ends up that you do have shared DNA when those situations happen.
Yeah, because that's one thing I was reading. I was reading the paranormal view of this, and then I was reading the scientific opinion about this. And I have to say, the scientific had a very, believable, logical aspect to it. And it is about, certain ethnic heritages and our DNA processing down and pretty interesting stuff. The one thing I would say about my doppelganger experiences, it was always in a situation where it was a total shock. Like I had no expectation of anything like that ever happening, because a lot of times, you get an inkling that something's coming. You can kind of feel it. I never had a clue. And I can remember being, when I was about 20, maybe 19, 20. I know I was in college and I went, I went to the beach at least twice a week growing up. And I remember being at the beach and seeing this woman from a distance. And I was thinking, she looks a lot like me. And so I kind of, went down that direction. And we could have been identical twins. It was just sort of stunning. And she saw me and we both were like, whoa.
It's my sister from another mister.
It's a trip.
It is a trip. And there's so many things, like there's certainly the instance of people meeting someone who looks just like them and then finding out that they do have an identical twin they didn't know of, or it's a cousin who looks just like them.
Yeah.
There's plenty of that happens, but some of these things are just truly unexplainable. And the paranormal investigator in me, when I saw those doppelgangers, I wanted to debunk it. That's why I ran in the house really quick and ran right in to see and saw, and I made note of what the doppelganger was wearing and what my boyfriend was wearing. And like, that's how I know for sure, like, that's not what he had on, and he couldn't have made it back in there. But I was trying to debunk it to see if there's any logical explanation of how that could have happened. But the one where he disappeared walking up the stairs in like a split second, no. And there's no exit upstairs except to jump down, which would be really painful. So it was really weird, but I was searching all over trying to find up some logical explanation, which did not exist. I had to deal with the fact that that was just weirdness on top of the usual.
You know, we can't discount the possible effect of the Earth's energies, and how the frequencies of the Earth and the shifting, the different things that, you know, there are a lot of places, Sedona is one, where very mystical, magical things happen. And I think I've actually heard some things about Queen Creek being a
Cave Creek
being an area like that too.
It is.
So
it is. I enjoyed living there, but I had many bizarre experiences. I don't know, Roz, in our lifetime, I mean, what's a few bizarre doppelgangers on top of everything else we've experienced? So it didn't scare me, but it did leave me mystified. But I also wonder if there's something about overlap of time, because maybe that was like, it was clothing he would wear and he did own. And so is it like a residual of something that happened or is going to happen, and time overlapping? And,
well,
you know, back in the days when this was invented, when they came up with doppelganger and a term for it, they didn't know about these things.
You know, it's interesting too, because I'm pretty convinced that when we have deja vu, we've gone forward in time and we've experienced something either in a dream state or a visioning state. And then that situation comes up in the reality of our current time. And we feel like we've already done it. We've already been through this. Everything's exactly the same. Could be that this parallel time running, you know, has many effects, and doppelganger seems like it would fit right in.
It does. So, you know, if you've seen yourself or you've seen somebody you know, and it was an exact replica of them, but I mean, it could have been a way that, like I said, like the person's in another place wearing different clothes. It couldn't have been them. Or it could be like Roz, where she was seeing herself. And, you know, we're going to be doing the podcast extension over on our Patreon page. And remember, you can get a week free membership over there, so you can go watch that too. We're going to talk about other people's real life experiences with doppelgangers, because it's wide. There's some famous people that had really stunning experiences, and it used to be written off as mental illness. Oh, clearly. And even now, honestly, I don't want to say used to. I worked in a psychiatric hospital, and I didn't tell anybody I saw spirit or angels, because I was afraid I'd end up in the inpatient unit, because there were plenty of people there who were just mediums, who saw angels, who'd had paranormal experiences. They were very logical people, but they were in the inpatient system. So I think that's still going on.
Oh, I'm certain of it. I mean, I certainly had a couple of experiences being in inpatient units where I could clearly see spirits that were present there, and nobody else could see them, you know.
So you can see how somebody hundreds of years ago seeing doppelgangers might end up diagnosed as schizophrenic.
Could have been,
because they didn't know what it was. They can't explain it. And some people are so concrete that it has to fit their box, or they can't handle it. Doctors, psychiatrists, tend to be not all of them.
Such a limiting view.
It is. It is. But, you know, I think I told you, working at the psychiatric actually it wasn't a psychiatric hospital, working in mental health when I was head of the mental health department. I had one psychiatrist who worked with me, for me, who believed in paranormal activity, who was really into it. Not a single other one in my whole mental health career was open to that being anything other than mental illness. So we have a long way to go, but if you've had experiences on this, share it with us, write it in the comment section, let us know, because you're probably going to help somebody else who's had some strange experience. And maybe it was from childhood where you never could get it out of your head. You couldn't figure out what happened.
I think it's very challenging when you have been raised in an environment where everything is black and white, to experience just about anything of a paranormal nature and not feel like you're losing it.
100% true. I just realized I needed to look and see what our topic is for next week. I want to let you know. Oh yeah, this is going to be a fun one. Next week, we're going to be sharing the topic Enamored with Atlantis. So talking about the civilization of Atlantis, the legends, what it was, the reality of it, what's happening today with it, searching for it. We'll talk about all that. We're getting so many great requests for these topics, and we appreciate it because we've been doing this for years. And eventually you're racking your brain like, what have we not talked about yet? Or we think we have, but we actually just had a conversation sitting in our office and we think we did a show about it. So don't be shy. Let us know. But in the meantime, join us over on Patreon to hear the extension and all the real life stories that some famous people and others have had with doppelgangers. And we hope you have an enlightening week.